We're going to continue with our tutorial two of two for plan view, and in this case it's for our prop, the hammer, that we're working on. So we're going to be back to using our T-square and set square, because what we're going to work on next, now that we have our side view all taken care of, we're going to do the top view. So here's where we have to do some projection lines of all the important lines here. So the head of the hammer has a bevel to it, so we're going to extrude that, a line upwards to that. So we have reference, so we can draw a to scale and proper proportion top view that will relate to our side view. And again, anybody who has any, here I'll turn this light off, has any drafting experience, they will get this one and see how it works. So I've projected up the lines of all the key elements of the side view of the hammer. What I do have to find is the center. We've done a 1 3/4 inch depth here, and that was a decision that I made, and that's something you can discover if you're working on a prop at any time, is what is the width of the object. You start on the side view, that gives us those dimensions. The next, it's working out the depth. So that's the difference between strictly doing one view using 2D shapes and having depth with 3D forms. So this is just working out all out in flats, so it's easier to work out, and then translating that into those shapes. So we could take that 1 1/4 inch that we drew from here to here and divide that in half. Or I like simple methods. I don't like doing math. I'm sure you don't either. So I take these lines from here to here, then I fold this paper and match the lines so that I have that 1 1/2 inch. Then when I open it, that should be the center where it folded. So if I mark that down, I line that back up and I put that line in, then I can go here with my T-square and run that across. So that should be the center for our top view. And that'll be important because we need to make it symmetrical, one side being equal to the other. So one of the things, we're going to start from the right and work our way to the left, is I have the roundness here. This is going to be the exact same depth because my prior knowledge is that this hammer, the working end of the hammer is round, so it should be the same diameter up here. So I'm going to take a look. You know what? I can measure it, or I'm going to use this method like I did before. I can find my center, which I did here from just folding those and bringing it here. And I can see, I don't think I folded quite center here. Let me take a look here. That's not too bad. Or maybe I didn't draw it quite right, the right dimensions here. But I'm going to find that it's pretty close. Didn't quite come to the 1 1/4, and that's okay. So what I can do, I'm going to bring this down so it matches this angle. Then I'm going to take, again, that center, and I'm going to find where the line is here and here, and bring that over and put it on these lines. And then using a straight edge, I am going to bring this line down. So we've got the head of that hammer hopefully matching from the top to the bottom here, and matching this side view to the top view because it's a round object. I am going to take a look that I'm going a little bit further in because we have the dimensions of this cylinder piece that's holding on to the head of the hammer, and it does narrow as we go further in, just a little bit. So line up to this line and this line. And I gotta keep this paper here so I'm not smudging in my side drawing here so much. There we go. So now we're into the head of the hammer. So this is going to be the maximum of our width. I'm going to take these two corners and I'm going to taper the head of that hammer back, and keeping this dimension the same on both sides. I will go over this in pencil just so we can really see where everything lines up and the dimension, the depth of this hammer is going to be. The next, I forgot to bring a projection line up, and that is the wood handle that's coming up. I need this line. Again, T-square, set square, bring this line up so it's good and square, and I know that dimension. So what I need to work out is the depth of that part, and I'm going to use lines that are already here, here, and here. And I'm going to create an oval shape so I can see what space the handle takes. Here is that spike that is hammered in to hold the handle on. Even though the wood is frayed, this frays it even more. And then what we have left is here, and we've got a lot we can make up on this part of the hammer, the claw. So again, I'm gonna just guess some measurements here. I'm gonna probably use these ones here without using a ruler. I'm just trying to make this symmetrical, and I'm gonna bring across here and across here. Then I'm going to take 2 points, and again I could measure this out. I'm going to eyeball that they're same distance, and I'm going to taper this inward, taper this one inward, and create a little circle here so that a nail would fit up in here and I could pull that out. Okay, so that gives us our top view, and I will take my set square to do my pencil line here, just so I can really, now that I've gone through and figured out my dimensions and things. Again, props are generally man-made items, and there's usually some mechanics involved with them, and then we want to fully understand them so that we can build them. In most cases, ultimately, we'll be doing 3D films, and I think already you're using 3ds Max to build some three-dimensional objects. And in that case, you're probably given some free rein just to build without reference. But in reality, when you're working at a studio, and particularly the bigger the studio, the more this applies, is that you will be building from something that came out of the design department. So design department, to make sure things are built as they intended, would give plan views to the modeling department so that one, to make the process easier and know dimensions and depth, especially if you're building something to scale to a character, that you have a reference of dimension of the character, and then as well the size and such of the prop, in this case the hammer, so we know how big it is in relation to the character. There we go. So there we go. So there's the wood part of that coming up there. And what we could do is we could add some little This is hammered down frayed wood that we can see here. Maybe it's got some little ticks into the side here. Okay. Anyway, we can add those textures to indicate this is metal. And same sort of treatment we have on the side view, we can add here to this top view. So you imagine if you're a 3D modeler and you're saying, okay, build this hammer. And as opposed to just getting a 3/4 view, you're given a plan view so that you can take each of these views and set them up so that you have the top above where you're going to model, the side view, front and back, and then you know you can model things exactly as intended. Same idea with a character when we do rotations, which you'll be getting into, that we do rotations so we can see a character from all the views so we can model it properly. So here I am going to project, we're going to take a look at the front and back view, front one first, is I'm going to project lines and being very careful my T-squares set up so that I can bring that line across, and that's, we've already brought the line across the top of that box that we started in the first place, the top of that wedge, then the frayed wood. We want to take a look at the block here of the hammer. We can see that the top of the hammer comes out just that little bit much further. Take a look at that center line for the round part of the hammer and project this part, and even, you know, this doesn't line up, so we got another line there, and then we're good all the way down. But what we might want to do just for our texture is brings a couple of lines over of where our texture starts for our wood grain. So we've got those. Now, the trick is going to be, and this is probably the trickiest part, is we've got to now project the lines from our top view to our front view so that we have the proper dimensions for everything. So when we projected the lines upwards and across, we've created a box here because the top depth should be the same dimension as here. And we sorted that out by saying 1 1/4 inches. So that creates a box here. And the reason for that is we're going to go from corner to corner. And when we do this dimension here, that'll give us a 45-degree line. And that means that anything we project across will then project downwards and be accurate. So for example, if I bring this, you know, the dimension of the head of the hammer across to this line, and I'll do the same here, down here as well, just so that they meet the 45-degree line. Also want to project over the width of the wood holding the handle on and this little metal wedge. So I'll bring these ones forward. So anything I would see in the front view, I want to project those lines over. So they come over and they hit that 45-degree line. Now what I want to do is project them down so that I can draw proper dimensions and all to scale from the top view and the side view. So the front view will be accurate. So if we ever want to build this as a 3D model, things will all line up and all be to scale, which would be the whole point of doing these projection lines so that they help us in our construction. Just like in real life, if you're going to manufacture this hammer, you would need plan views or a blueprint with all the accurate dimensions so that when this is all machined, oh, I think that line went crooked on me. I didn't have my T-square, wasn't lined up well. So here, I'll bring this one down. So we got a whole bunch of lines here. Maybe I should have done those one at a time so we could figure things out. But the idea is we want to create a circle here on the head of our hammer. So we want to see what our dimension is. So that's here and here. And then at the top here is our outer circle and our outer circle. Outer circle. So that's down here. Sorry, ignore that line. So I can draw a perfect circle here. So what I could do is I could do the old trick of finding that, and hang on, I'll use this so it can be absolutely accurate. Crossed here and a crossed here. Hopefully you can see this. This isn't too small, but you'll see the end result. And all I'm doing here is building this up. So I've got 4 quarters here that I can try and draw my perfect circle. I'm not sure if I got my dimensions absolutely. Oh, it should be this line out here. Sorry. So that should be out to here. Too many lines. But you can see the idea behind it. That now I can draw that. So this is the outer circle. Now there's lines here. This is the inner circle for this taper on here. Main thing is you get the idea of how plan views work and how they're helpful in design and the process of getting that replicated into a 3D model for our production. There we go. So got replicating what's happening here. So down here we have our width, which is here, is the front of that hammer, which is this line. So we can see that line come out from here to here. We can see it. Here is the bottom of that box here, and it is inset. So I'm going to do the same here. And it seems to be inset the same as this is inset. So I'm going to use that same line here to figure out how much that works in. So I'm going to bring this across and this down. The other lines is, let me see if I follow this one down. Here's where the wood, the frayed wood, comes out here and here. And here's where that metal spike is. That's all good. And now we've got to figure out our handle. So what I'm going to do is bring a center line down so our handle is straight, and I'm going to take where the base comes in. So I'll bring this down and this down. That's not too bad. So I want to have the handle be relatively straight here, but as I see it getting bigger and bulkier at the bottom, I'm going to do the same. Bring that out. Now the other thing I want to project over is, see the bottom of the hammer comes across here. So this is the front view. We don't see the bottom, but I want to have the maximum width here see if I'm getting that right. Oh, brought that right over and coming around. Maybe that doesn't come right to the edge here. And here we can take a look at that wood grain from a side point of view and what it would look like. Alright, so now I got pretty much there. I'm going to pencil it in. And hopefully all these dimensions match all the other views, so that this is helpful in knowing just what this hammer looks like from the front view. So it's good for a modeling point of view, but next week our exercise is going to be taking this drawing, or plan view drawings, and trying to draw the 3/4 view from whatever perspective, and with all the information here should help us be able to draw with 3D form what this object would look like and what we would see from any of the perspective. So doing this helps at construction, also at drawing multiple views. And this is a relatively simple object. I say we do this with props, and props are anything as simple as a hammer or as complex as a vehicle. We did a means of transportation in our 2D drawing, but say now that we have to make that a 3-dimensional object and we want to draw it in 3 dimensions, and we want to build it in, model it in 3 dimensions. Having plan view will help explore and understand it so that we could build it appropriately. Okay, so I'm bringing this down. And again, we want it to look as close to our various views. So here we want this hammer to have the dimensions and the shape of what the other view that it all matches. Okay. So now I'll add a little bit of this here. I could put that shadow that we had over there here. And I'll try and be a little thinner and lighter on the texture. All working here, so that makes sense. All right, so what we can do, again, if we're taking a look at shadow, even texture and such, we could take a look that we have a metal facing here, and we wouldn't see probably too much more than that, than maybe these lines showing metal happening there. Maybe have some wood grain coming up through there. And if we wanted to have, just in blue, indication of shadow, just to give it, even though we're working with 2D shapes, flat, we can add some shadow here just to give it indication that we know this is round to elliptical in shape for the handle, and help us in drawing and understanding it for 3/4 view or building it as a dimensional model. Okay, so this is the toughest part, is here, and making sense of these lines coming down so all this measures up and lines up to these various views. So we'll do that once again on this side and work that out. So I am going to find again, this should make up a square box. And if we go from corner to corner, that should be 45 degrees. And everything we project over will project down. So I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to bring, it's going to be different on the back because we just want the back information. So we know what this looks like. So we have a better understanding of basically the claw in this case, of how that, what the dimensions are. And to bring those dimensions across to the back here, and where that claw starts on the back and where it ends, that all kind of lined up. So that worked out easy. And then we can project down all of those lines and work out the dimensions for the back so that we can understand it. Okay, so I'm just going to bring, so accuracy is making sure everything is uptight on your T-square, set square, and make sure pencil's lined up and that we're bringing those lines down properly so it works. So not as complicated on the back, or hopefully it'll be a little easier. I'm going to bring the center line down to the bottom so that when we show the back view, we get it. And here, let me start at the bottom and work our way up. We can see, we'd see the bottom of the hammer. So what I'm going to have, and again, it doesn't go quite to the edges. Oops, sorry, wrong line, here to here. So I know I'm going to have an ellipse about like that from the back view that we can see into the bottom of the hammer and work our way up. So I'm just going to grab my blank piece of paper here so that I can work out that hammer. So this is the bottom here. So I should be finding the center line and getting my, and working that up here. Again, rather than measure, I like using just some reference points here by drawing on paper and converting it over. Because I don't want to get my ruler and trying to remember what line I'm working on or what's happening there. And try and work this out so it matches. The other is to trace the whole thing with the light on and then putting it under here and tracing it over so it's an exact match. So any number of ways of kind of cheating or making life easier, should say, from one view to another and keeping it as accurate as we can. Okay. So on the back, I want to work that out as to where things line up. So I have from here to here, and here's one more line I got to project now, because I made this one up from the depth of that line, how far that split happens to be able to pull a nail. So I've got to project that one over so I can see where that happens. So I'll do that first. Here is the opening on the claw. Here is the claw of the hammer. So if I follow that line down, it's that wide and that wide. And it comes out close to the edge here. So I am going to taper that line back, and it ends here. Taper that line back a bit. So I've got that. I'm even going to give it some depth here in material. And then I know this is the top, this is the bottom, but it narrows in, so I'm only going to take it from here to here. So that this, I know, goes from this angle down to that one. That one goes to that one. And this line comes across, that this frays out this way and this way. and then the spike is right here. And that gives up, yeah. So that's not too complicated. That actually things lined up and such to make that easier. So now it's just a matter of darkening this in. The pencil's getting a little blunt here. And again, I can use a straight edge for any of these. Try not to get my hand in the artwork, so I'm not smearing the pencil around. I can get this angle, which almost matches this one. And that coming out. So this gives us all the information so that we can do an accurate drawing of 3/4. And understanding of this to be able to work it out in 3-dimension from any angle, because we've got every angle sorted out here, so we know the proportions, we know the design, the construction, where all the bits are, and that'll be our challenge next week. I'm going to show how we can take this information and create a 3-dimensional drawing. But lots to take in here on our plan view. So I've split this into 2 so that we can hopefully go through and make some sense of this one. Okay, so can add some texture here, showing that's metal. Maybe some of the frayed wood up here. And now we can do the same, and I'm going to project this across and work out what our texture would look like on this view. So just bring this where that knot starts. I will draw pencil here that it's on this side now. And then maybe some shadow here. Okay. So just so you can see the relationship between the two. So again, this is the requirement for this lesson, is to try and follow along and do the best you can at doing a plan view of this hammer. I've given dimensions, kind of step through the process. Do the best you can at following that. And the main thing is keeping proportions, dimensions and things consistent from one view to the next, so that it'll help anybody who has to construct this or draw it from whatever views are necessary in a production. Okay, so I'm just going to do some shading here, and again I'm using angled lines to support the round or cylindrical shape of the handle that you would be gripping onto here. And again, I'm not going to do those in pencil line. I'm just going to have that here to work out. So again, at any point you can go back, stop as often as possible to figure out where I picked things up, and hopefully the concept, the idea makes sense. So here we have 4 drawings of the same object from different perspective, flat, 2-dimensional, and using projection lines to be able to draw it accurately from one view to the next. Most complicated is the width that we've come up with is the same at the front and back and the top, and that creates a box here of which we can create a 45-degree line and change our or deflect our lines from that 45-degree line, so we've got some guidance that we can draw things accurately and in proportion. Okay, so good luck with that. There will be a Dropbox for this one drawing, and seeing how close or successful or not that you've been at understanding this and making it work, and then we'll move on from there. All right, good luck.